Ahoy, everyone. This is David Eugene Perry, once again in the Zoom room for our occasional series of conversations with thought leaders and colleagues in the public relations, design, and in this case, the AI space. And for those of you who don't know what that stands for, AI, Artificial Intelligence. And last week, Andres attended a conference in San Francisco, TransformX, all about AI and specifically generative AI. So welcome to the Zoom room, Andres.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Great to be here as always and to be able to talk to our community about some of this technology that's really changing the world in which we live. The conference last week was that the topic was all about AI. It was hosted by a company that maybe not too many people are familiar with. It's called Scale.com. And Scale is run by a very young CEO. He left MIT, I believe, at 19 years old to start this company. And boy, it's a rocket ship. The company's completely gone through the roof and really betting all of its intelligence on this AI field. They've made offerings and products that cater to the Fortune 1000, all the way to government and so forth. It's a very fast-paced industry. But one thing that they specialize in that was very interesting to me being at the event is they're really doing the most basic parts of AI, just taking large amounts of data that a lot of companies have across many industries and making it more feasible for AI to happen. And AI being artificial intelligence, this idea of programs and software that can actually be intelligent, that can actually make decisions and can make predictions, which are very impactful to almost everything that we do.
Right.
Yeah, it was but it was a fantastic event. I tell you, the speakers that were there were luminaries across the industry. There were old time names like Eric Schmidt, the former chairman of Google, all the way to the current CEO of OpenAI. Sorry, not the CEO, the CTO of OpenAI and the co-founder. There was the CEO of many companies that were there. One in particular was Stability.ai, which we can talk about a little bit later. Imad Mostak, he really gave a compelling vision for why he created his company, which is, to my knowledge, is about only a year old. And they literally transformed most of the world right now in terms of how they think about AI. So a lot to digest from the event, but in the simplest terms, what I see coming and my takeaway from the event is, even in my short life, I've seen a few sort of big transformational steps in technology. There was the transition that we all had, just even getting on the internet, like the introduction of the web and how that was open to everyone and so forth. And it was transformational to large parts of society and how we live. All the way through, we've seen the transition to cloud computing, the transition even to how mobile phones have proliferated all over the world, getting people access to these things. So this sort of AI thing that's always been around us. I think, David, you and I have spoken in the past that it's all over cinema, it's all over our culture, but it hasn't really taken hold in some ways that a lot of us can viscerally feel. And that's where this generative AI piece has kind of come in. For those of you that are unaware of what generative AI is, this scenario in which, using some kind of a prompt, maybe it's just a text prompt, maybe you write a sentence, that sentence can be output into some kind of an image. So it could be an image generator, but there are other facets of this. Some people are using it to write poetry. So where they just say, this is how I'd like the poetry to sound or feel, and it's actually generating that output. So a much different way of prompting a computer, which it's right now in its infancy. Maybe like the first time, if you've ever, maybe the first time you had a cell phone many, many years ago, or the first time you got access to the web. If you compare that first instance to now, it's a very transformational leap.
It is. I mean, the amount of technological advancements since I started my career with my little Apple two-seat computer back in 1985 is just astounding. And I remember my mother, who worked for one of the baby bells for AT&T many years ago in the 1960s, she told me we could have picture phones now, but society isn't ready for it. My question to you is society ready for AI? And the second part of that question is, what are some of the day-to-day examples of AI that people use every day that they may not be aware of in their home, in their business, in their car?
Yeah, AI is already here. It has permeated into almost every fabric of our lives that touches software. I think that's the first thing to acknowledge, that the only real big difference right now is that we're in an age where the everyday person, anyone who is capable of maybe sending a social media post,
Mhm.
maybe who's capable of consuming content, which is very, very common right now. If you think of the social media landscape, a lot of people go on and maybe read and reshare things and so forth, and like and so forth. The simplicity of that has now come to actually generating AI, and that generative field is making AI accessible to many more people. It's not everyone. Large parts of the world don't have access to some of these tools, and and I think that's the important part. Back to Imad Mostak, the CEO of a company called Stability.ai. That's the whole framework of this company. The company that he's established, very controversially, he has taken what some of these other generative AI companies have put out there, and he's made it completely open source. It's completely available to anyone. So anyone who's in maybe in India or in Pakistan or somewhere in the world, that maybe some people would think maybe they may not have access to this. Well, they certainly do, and they're using it. I mean, they're creating incredible works of art. The system in which they're building it also, he's created, or I could say Stability, he's also created, or in the process of creating versions for every country. So it's the scenario, back to your original question about, maybe is this something we should be concerned about, I guess.
Yes.
And the take that Stability has, and the reason it's so controversial, is this technology is here one way or another, and it could either be behind a very sort of closed corporate environment, or it could be maybe closed in an academic environment where maybe there's not enough compute power. So there's these two sort of realities that we live in. Somebody had to build a third, and that seems to be what they've done, is this scenario of open source. So I think in some ways the most accessible thing I could think of right now is like Wikipedia, right?
Mhm.
Someone in rural India can use Wikipedia to learn about something. And now with these tools, they can even generate maybe imagery and so forth to kind of complement some of those things. So they're all just sort of interesting things that I think we're going to see sort of blossom from this new era. And it's not just images, and it's not just sound. Some of the demos that I saw involved animation, like doing videos. So you could imagine I'll put it, maybe a young George Lucas before Star Wars came out, before even American Graffiti, being able to write a script in some way, putting it in a system like this, and having a storyboard prompted immediately. Uh,
Right.
what that's going to unleash, the amount of creativity that's going to be unleashed, the cost of doing these things is going to go down dramatically, and the output's going to be increasingly very valuable for society. But there is that caveat that there is the danger that we will use this technology in maybe I would say unexpected ways, and I think that's a
Right.
given. Yeah.
Right. So, back to part of my original question, in our own homes, like right now, I have Alexa, I have a laptop, I have voice activated this, I have a car that responds when I turn a certain way. Is that AI? Is that part of AI? Or is AI just something that we don't yet incorporate into our daily lives as quote unquote workaday people?
Yeah. So everything you mentioned, from what I can hear, it certainly is AI. It's a component inside the chips of our phones as well, to be able to do some of these foundational models, some of this transformations that are happening, to give the computer the ability to predict. So how might Alexa respond to the natural language that's coming out of your voice? It has to process it. It has to put it through something to formulate an appropriate
So
response.
it learns. It's like that episode of Star Trek. I'm a Trekkie where the machines learn and they become sentient. The computers now learn from humans. Will there be a time when computers learn from computers? Can AI learn from itself?
Yeah, this is exactly what's happening in labs right now. So this whole generative approach where humans are in the loop. Right now, we're in the loop. We're saying, this is almost like the new paintbrush for humanity. So humanity is doing and working with this, but we're prompting the AI. But there are labs that are saying, well, what if the AI were to prompt this? What if there were a collective problem? And that's where AI really plays a big role. It's this scenario in very existential problems, big, wicked problems, problems that we can't solve almost individually, we can't solve them, but collectively with these tools, we're going to be able to make progress on some of those very big, ambitious things. And this is doing everything. I mean, the company I mentioned, Stability, there's also companies like DeepMind from Google that have done amazing things in the health and human space. They're doing things like protein folding and just amazing things in biology, which some people couldn't even think were possible because they assumed it would take too much time. And all of that's been flipped over. They're saying the years AI right now is like in dog years. 1 year in AI is about 7 years. That's how much change is happening from 1 year to the next. So a very fast moving pace. It reminds me a lot of even when David, when you and I many years ago were just introducing people to social media and just saying,
Yes.
hey, these are things to worry about. I mean, we did a session on social security. I mean, and not the literal social security, but like how to make sure you're safe on social media. Things that most people weren't thinking of back then, but how relevant is that today? And I think with this, with AI and so forth, without sounding the alarms, the important point here is we have to pay attention to these tools. And we all need to come to I think right now with the chapter we're in right now, we all need to wake up and say, I can be creative. Now all I need to do is dream. Anything you can dream, I can tell you. I mean, I'll even help someone. Feel free to reach out on Twitter or on, through email. But if you have an idea, you can now get very close to seeing that idea through without being a designer even, which I think is fascinating.
Right. In our last few minutes, I want to talk to you about some of the practical applications, and then if you can, and we'll put it in the description of this interview, some of the companies that you experienced at TransformX that you think are ones to look at. I just reached onto my desk this copy of The Economist from June of this year, AI's New Frontier. And I keep this on my desk, and Alfredo subscribes to The Economist and reads it page by page. And I've kept this on my desk since June because I keep referring to it because something made me think this was going to be a historic issue. I mean, since June to now we're in October, have there been more advances in AI? I mean, is this issue from June still up to date or not?
It's not. Even from the event last week to today it's whenever this publishes is about October 25th. In just the week since the event, there have been announcements and changes. What we're seeing right now are scientists taking publications that are coming out around AI and just iterating on them, just iterating on what a computer has generated. There's been new forms of doing math. All of this is happening in just a week's time frame. So that alone, I can't even imagine, like if I was going into university right now, like picking like what do I study? What should I be pursuing? Because now with some of these advances, research doesn't have to take 7 to 9 years. Now you can really have a thesis and start to run through some of these big challenging questions in a much shorter time frame. And this is across every industry. This isn't just computer science. This is something that you could just name the industry. You think of somebody working in finance, somebody working even in entertainment. And that was one of the areas that really struck me as well when they were talking about media companies. And back to David Perry, some of the work that we do in media and PR. I thought a lot about that because one of the topics that came up was this sense of, well, what is media going to be like? What is the media house going to do? I mean, you think of a company that has a ton of IP, like maybe a Disney. How do they embrace this technology? Well, it starts with just making a foundational model of their own. If you think of everything in the Disney universe, the Marvel and all of the IP that they have, Star Wars and all of that, it keeps going and going. When that's brought into an AI and you think of it as that being their world, it can start help generate what comes next. And that's also something where they can actually build around that. So I'm very interested in seeing how that transforms. And it's not a scenario of one company doing it. They are all going to be doing it. And that's a very exciting tomorrow. But yeah, in terms of companies that were present, there were in the audience, it was an invite only event. But in the audience, you had everybody from many of the major VC firms, to Apple in attendance, Google, many of like the local companies that are very much AI companies. They just, Google is a search company, but let's not get it wrong. That search is powered by AI. It always has been. There's been components in there. So again, these are the building blocks that haven't been accessible to everyone. Usually for the people that even work, the engineers that work in there, they can't even speak to a lot of this because they're under NDA. So this new sort of chapter we're in right now, and it feels very exciting. I feel like we're in this big S curve of this new technology that for a lot of people, there's like a sense that they're not as skeptical about it. They're like, yeah, AI is pretty remarkable. We don't maybe know exactly how it works in all detail, but the fact that it's generating some of this stuff, it's phenomenal. And I'll add one more point to that. The only reason that we're in this sort of inflection point, that the results are happening, and it's actually quite recent. Really, all they did is the companies expanded their data set. So from like a few parameters, they went up into billions of parameters. They like indexed all of Google images or something like that. So that's all it is. All we've done is fed more data to the AI, and the AI is actually churning out things that are very, very relevant to humanity. So I think with that case, it doesn't mean there are other ways that other AI tools may use this. It's just very promising right now in its early stages. And I think we're going to be in for, I mean, it could literally be something where we talk about this every couple of weeks because there's new advances coming at a pretty rapid pace.
Well, I've always said work with people smarter than you that make you look good. And whether it's our creative director, Alfredo Casuso, our design director, you, we have some of the smartest, most forward-looking people in the world. So I look forward to more conversations with you about AI, artificial intelligence, and its impact on entertainment, culture, intellectual property. And if you'd like to learn more, you can just go to our website, davidperry.com, the contact page, or you can email us directly, andres@davidperry.com, or me, news@davidperry.com. In our last 20 seconds, any closing thoughts for people who want to learn more about AI, or why they shouldn't be frightened of it?
Yeah, I mean, in the last 20 seconds, I would just say there's no reason to be frightened about something that has the potential to help humanity with the problems that we face. And these are very big problems. And I think that even the sense of creativity, while it may seem trivial and small, it's helping people do research. It's helping us advance technology. And it's also looking at humanity from, so I would say the fastest thing to do would be to actually go check out Stability.ai. If you're able to go on there and see some of their mission, they're a nonprofit as well. So there's a component on there that's very open to everyone. And it's not just Western focused, it's very global focused, which is an interesting concept of how to put this technology in the hands of people who may benefit from it. So I would start with that. That's a good place to start your journey. And again, we're here to support. So feel free to reach out. And if you have as many questions as I do about it, I mean, this is a great forum for us to continue discussing. And David, one point, so we're working people smarter than you. I feel like that's how it is right now with me. I'm working with AI, and I've been doing generative art, and it's smarter than me in many ways. And it's kind of like having another child in many ways. I'm over here like sending instructions to it and doing some back and forth. So it's pretty impressive that way that we have another member of the team, if you will, which is welcome.
Well, we've been speaking with Andres Acosta, one of the smartest technologists and curious technologists I know, on behalf of our whole team at David Perry and Associates and everyone else who's trying to figure out this brave new world of AI, artificial intelligence. This is David Eugene Perry. Ahoy.